Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. My name is host Mike Jokum. Jess and Matt are here to join me to talk about all of the exciting McLaren and engineering news in IndyCar this week and give you our take on everything. This week, again, brought to you by gripmat.com, the world's first flexible non-slip tool mat developed by an Air Force mechanic. Use promo code PLP10 for 10% off. So, without further ado, let's dive right into the news. In case you guys missed it, there is some pretty huge McLaren news going out there that Hinch was relieved of command, I guess, a couple evenings ago, and both Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew will be the Aero McLaren Schmidt-Peterson drivers in 2020. So let's break this down. How surprised are you guys? What were your kind of initial thoughts without really, thinking things through too much on the news?
Well, we'll start because we're going to talk about Hinch in a second. But as far as just the driver announcement, I think I'm really psyched with the two drivers they selected. I know the experience may be lacking, but these are two insanely talented drivers that, with the proper mentorship and with, the right surroundings with the team, I think they can really do well next season. So I think of what they had available, they picked two really good studs.
I am still a little bit shocked by this. I don't think that this was necessarily the best move they could have made. Obviously, loved watching Pato. Oliver is obviously talented, but to have two rookies on a team seems a little bit questionable, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely caught me off guard. I know there was rumors of, Pato maybe heading there after Red Bull shockingly released him, which I guess is another surprising thing that we kind of haven't touched on because it came out at some point last week that, what's his name? Helmut Marko said, you've got opportunities in IndyCar, go, which I don't think any of us probably predicted. But, two rookies. I guess Pato is still a rookie because he only raced in.
No, he should be because it's 5 or more and you're no longer a rookie.
Okay, so he only did 4 last year.
Did he? I thought he did like 7.
Yeah, I thought he did 7.
Well, I will look that up in the meantime. But obviously, pairing him with a true rookie in, you were right, he did 7. Ignore everything I say. So he is not technically a rookie, but for all intents and purposes, he's a rookie.
Still very green.
Yeah. Two very talented but very young drivers. It's going to be interesting to see how they can grow with with the newly formed team. And one of the things that Adam Stern brought up probably about an hour ago, as of this recording Tuesday night here, was that Hinchcliffe was expected to be the driver until Pato was released by Red Bull. So this, the Pato part of this announcement came together pretty quickly. Does that, again, I kind of touched on it, a couple of sentences ago. Were you guys surprised that Red Bull released, Pato, and what do you think about their chances in 2020? Do you think we'll see any wins, any podiums?
Who? Pato or the Red Bull? Sorry, I got confused.
No, this would be Pato and Oliver.
Okay. No, I don't see them having any wins next year. I think they are definitely going to have an uphill battle ahead of them. I mean, like I said before, they're both extremely talented. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on them at all, but I think that in the case of the current series, you really need somebody who is going to be there to help you set the car up and have the previous experience. And unfortunately, they went with two, obviously not a rookie in Pato, but still a rookie. And I think it's just going to kind of be difficult for them to pull it together. And as far as the Red Bull thing went, yeah, that's extremely shocking to me. Never saw that coming. Obviously knew he wasn't going to get his super license, but I still thought they would slot him into a different program somewhere. Did not see them releasing him at all. So I was extremely shocked by that.
Yeah, I mean, everything I kind of know about Red Bull really comes from Jess and what she says on here. So for the news that we saw, I was really shocked. And I'm not entirely buying what Pato said, and I think it was like the Racer article. I hope there was good intentions there with Marco saying, like, oh wow, you got other opportunities, why don't you go pursue those? I think maybe there might be a little bit of a PR spin on that, but if we just want to believe in positive things in the world, I guess that's okay. But as far as the wins, I think we have to keep in mind is that unless, and I know McLaren's track record last year was terrible with all of the failures they had. Hopefully they can figure that out. But we have to remember that, basically McLaren's inheriting a Schmidt-Peterson team that's on the rise, and that, had some really decent showings last year with Ericsson and Hinch, and I think is only going to get better with more resources. So while the drivers may not be the most experienced and maybe not the best at setting up cars as of this moment, I think their ceiling for growth is really high. So I do expect to see them fast at a lot of tracks next year, especially the road courses. And I don't think a win is out of the question, especially at maybe a place like Detroit or someone where they can pull off a strategy and try to sneak a win out.
Yeah, it's easy to pick on McLaren and their comedy of errors in 2019, but you think you would hope a team with that level of motorsports experience, kind of realizes the idiocy in what they did and learns from it. And I think that's my gut feeling right now. Obviously, it's far too early to tell, but one more question two more questions here. One, are they too young to be teammates together?
Depends on your frame of mind. I'd say no. I'd say new age and some like Colton Herta last year. I mean, I think he's kind of maybe a new guard of it's not necessarily about age anymore.
I'll agree with that. I don't know that they're too young to be teammates per se. I do still wish that they would have somebody with a little more experience than Pato has.
I think, Oliver has had a great track record through, almost all of his road to Indy career. Is, in Indy Pro 2000, I guess at the time it was Pro Mazda year, wasn't great, but overall he's done great rising through the ranks. Pato, he's done well everywhere he's gone for the most part. So I think they're both very talented young drivers, and I think they'll complement each other very well. So I don't think they're necessarily too young to be teammates. Will there be races that they both struggle because they're young and they don't have somebody to, a Hinchcliffe to rely on? Probably. I definitely think Jess has a point there, but I think for the most part, no, I don't think it's a huge deal. So I'll wrap part one up with one question here. I'm going to ask this in two different ways. Is this the most exciting team announcement in recent memory? And also, is this the most social media divisive an announcement in recent memory? Because the social media opinions have been wide ranging, from very happy to very angry in the past 26 or 27 hours from when this first got posted on racer.com.
Is it the most exciting? Gosh, that's a tough one because there have been some really good ones in recent memory. I am going to say it's definitely up there. As far as the social media thing goes, yeah. I mean, it's been nothing but ugly for the past 24 hours, probably more like 26 hours at this point since the article got posted and everybody, basically it blew their mind. So it's definitely up there on that one. As far as the most exciting, though, you got to think of like, gosh, Ganassi in general at this point, because last year we kind of had no idea what was going to happen. Was Scott going to stay? Was Scott going to go? What is going on with that team? And then kind of there's just been several here in the last few years. So I definitely have to say it's up there, though. I'm not sure I would call it the most exciting, but top 3 for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I think to me, the benchmark for most exciting will definitely be 6 a.m. Alonso announcement for the Indy 500 a couple years ago. That's just that will still baffle me because it was like several hours of hype on Twitter, which was super fun. And then as far as the most, what phrasing do you use? Controversial?
Divisive. But yeah, either way, same thing.
2 that stick out to me. One is kind of more obvious, was the Santino Ferrucci announcement last year. Obviously, that got a lot of hot takes and more divisive opinions on social media that we don't really need to rehash. And then the other was actually kind of a lesser known one, was in 2014 when whatever they called themselves, Schmidt-Peterson or whoever, announced that Jacques Villeneuve would be driving for them in the Indy 500, and everybody came out and was bashing them for not hiring a young talent like a Connor Daly or whoever that could have also run that seat, but instead going with the guy who's like 40 something that, chose to leave IndyCar in 1995, and people were very upset about that for whatever reason. So those are 2 that kind of stick out to me, but this one was up there. It's more, I'd say, civil conversations that are going out there. It's not too, there's plenty of people that are mad at Arrow McLaren, but the conversations I've been seeing have, for the most part, been pretty polite, just a lot of debating.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the only one on the positive I would add would be, the hype around McLaren in general the past couple years. Fred Watch and McLaren Watch in 2018 and 2019, there's definitely plenty of excitement for that announcement as well. On the other side, the only one that comes to mind that you guys didn't mention was, and I forget his name, the French dude who was going to race in the 500 this year.
Last year.
Yeah, but the owner who murdered his wife. Yeah, whatever that whole situation murdered Yeah. We don't need to rehash that one, but that one certainly drew a lot of ire once everybody figured out who he was, because I know I didn't bother researching him once his name got
Didier
released.
Calmels.
Yes, thank you. Certainly an interesting one. I bet you we won't see him as a team owner in the Indy 500.
That's probably a safe bet. That was fraught with drama immediately, and rightly so.
With that being said, I'll do a couple Patreon shout outs here before we continue on. Let's see. Thank you to Matt Grunholds. Thank you to the Frenchman, Michael Goodier. Look forward to seeing him this weekend down in the DC area. And lastly, thank you to our favorite not author, Stephen King.
Her favorite not author.
Love the English.
Just trying to keep it unique.
Oh, gosh. All right. So we clearly cannot possibly be done with McLaren yet. So here we go. we're going to talk about the Hinchcliffe side of things. So with the deal that is not technically official yet, still, this is going to leave Hinchcliffe out of a ride. Award and Askew are moving in. Hinchcliffe is going to have to move out. So what do you guys think about Hinch not having a ride right now?
I'm not surprised. Is this where I get to humble brag? Is this the moment of the episode where I get to humble brag?
You should see his smile.
All right. Well, I don't know. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was a fan question on what % chance we give Hinch coming back to Arrow, McLaren, Schmidt, Peterson. And I said 10%. I'm not going to call out any hosts who host podcasts out there that may have said 80 or 85%, but I said 10%. So I guess, no, I'm not surprised. I guess it wasn't just me out there for sure. There's definitely a bunch of people who had their doubts. But when it came out that they signed Award and Askew, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it didn't hit me till like 10 minutes later. I'm like, wait, that means Hinch doesn't have a ride. So it sucks for him for sure. It's a really kind of bummer deal. I wasn't rooting for him to lose his seat, but it just kind of seemed like there's just something fishy about the whole thing this whole time.
Yeah, man. Matt, you were right. I will start out that by saying that I'm not. I want to say I'm surprised, but at the same time, there was such a weird, lack of discussion about Hinchcliffe that I see Matt's point looking back on things. So I'm just going to leave it at that I'm a little surprised, but I guess I shouldn't be.
I'm still shocked. Like I said in the last part, I think that they would have done themselves a favor by keeping somebody who had the experience. But here, I'm going to just I'm winging it here because I'm just thinking out loud here. I saw somebody else online today post something about could they possibly have kept him in some sort of capacity, like a driver coach type capacity. What if they're going to come out and shock us all and have a third car, or like they said, keep him in some sort of capacity? I mean, that would be kind of mind-boggling also.
Let me answer your question with a question. If you were Hinch, would you take the deal?
He wouldn't have a choice. He's under contract.
Well, I think if they... I don't know if that's been absolved or not.
Yeah, I guess that would be something... Yeah.
Or like a legal thing.
If what Schmidt originally said in his original release is accurate, then he was still under contract. So he would have had to have bought himself out of the contract.
Which I imagine they probably did.
Well, they could cancel the contract for many reasons. But I'm saying if they came up with a job for him.
Because if they kept that contract,
it would be difficult. It would be difficult. They have the same
salary, because then they'd be like the most expensive driver coach of all time.
I don't know what his salary is. Who knows?
So it's an interesting point. I thought about it a little bit earlier. If he, I'm sure the owners have said, listen, feel free to explore your options. If he goes around and he's not liking what he sees, yeah, maybe that's the right move for him to stay involved in IndyCar in 2020 is to be, I don't know, either a third car or an Indy 500 entry, or I guess, I don't know, some sort of driver coach extraordinaire. I don't, whatever role he can fill in the paddock it's probably better than him just kind of, sitting around on the couch. But it's I'm curious to see if he has a contract still, or if he, if they bought him out or released him from it or what have you. I'm sure we'll figure that out. They'll probably announce it right after we get done recording, because that's the way things typically work around here. But yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to that discussion too we had of at the time when the deal was announced, like, hey, should he stick with Honda or should he come back to the Chevrolet team with Arrow, McLaren, Schmidt, Peterson? And obviously he decided to stick with the team, and then the team didn't stick with him. So, yes, if he still is under contract, it's going to be interesting to see what transpires.
Going back to that conversation too, even though I was confident he would be staying with the team, I also said that he hadn't produced enough in recent years to warrant it. So it will be interesting. I was just kind of playing devil's advocate there. I wanted to get you guys' opinion on that. So do you guys think that the team did him a disservice by waiting this late in the offseason?
I get why people are frustrated and saying that. I mean, the offseason still has, I don't know, I'm not counting, I'm not doing the math in my head here, but something like 5 months left. So it's not really late into the offseason to me. I know the holidays kind of slow things down for a while here in the coming weeks, but he's got I don't want to say plenty of time to figure things out. He's got time to figure things out. And, this might be news to us. It might be news to, racer.com and everybody out there, but maybe Hinch has been talking behind the scenes with McLaren for a couple weeks, and maybe it's not, brand spanking news to him. It was just a matter of, hey, we are going to officially move forward with somebody else now.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for as far as timing, looking at both sides, it obviously stinks for Hinch because, as it's been pointed out, there's a limited amount of seats available and maybe only 2 potential full-time seats out there available. And thinking more of the Honda teams with Rahal and Coyne, which we'll discuss later. But as far as so it's kind of tough for Hinch. But as far as McLaren, Aero Schmidt-Peterson, it worked out great for them because, if they had decided with Askew and Hinch 2 weeks ago, obviously they wouldn't have had Pato. So I think Pato got really lucky. I think it worked out great for him. I think it really worked out well for Spam, if that's what we're going to call him. And I think for them, I think they got 2 good drivers kind of at the right time.
I mean, I can kind of see that for them. As far as, do I think Hinch, had a disservice done? Not necessarily. Like you said, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but also, I mean, it is not that late into the off season. We're not talking, we're getting ready to go racing in 2 weeks. So there is still time to put things together. Obviously teams are having to, kind of work with the cars anyways, a little more than normal during the off season due to the aero screen and everything else. So the teams are already in the shop, which means, they could potentially put another car together if something came together. So I don't necessarily think that it's a disservice, even though everybody's so up in arms about it. I think time will tell, but I just don't see it being that bad in the long run. So you kind of mentioned it, Matt. There's some potential seats, third Coyne car, third Rahal Letterman car, possibly a different Honda team. I'm gonna throw this one out there too. He already did a really nice statement about going to drive for Chevy. So how about we just open it up to what are the odds that he will wind up at a different team? Not necessarily a different Honda team, but just a different team in general.
At this moment, I don't see it being a Chevrolet team. As I said at the time of that statement, I think he was just saying that for the nice PR of things and making it sound like it was kumbaya, but I don't necessarily think that he's actually going to end up at a Chevrolet team. And with the Coyne, I would give that third Coyne seat, or, Coyne told Pruitt or Malsher that he was still confident that Ferrucci would be back. So assuming they do expand into 3 cars, I give him a 25% chance that he ends up in the coin car full time, the third one. Rahal, 10%. That's sounding a little pessimistic for that entry. Chevrolet, I'll give it 2% chance. I mean, it's not impossible. And then some variation of a part-time or Indy 500 only entry, or whatever the math is that I got left on the percentages I just threw out there.
Thank you for not knowing the math, because I definitely didn't try to add it up either. Yeah, that's a great question. First off, yeah, I'm pretty confident that Ferruccio would be back with coin. That's everything I've heard from everybody I've talked to in the last couple of weeks. So a third car at coin, and unless he's bringing more money than his current Honda Canada and whatever other personal services contract sponsors he has, I don't see it. And it's the same thing with Rahal. Unless he's bringing a full $6 or $7 or $8 million, I don't see it likely. I see less likely at coin than Rahal. Not to purposely disagree with Matt, I just kind of see it slightly in the opposite way. But because I said that, I'm probably going to be wrong again, because that's the way this offseason has gone so far. In terms of a Chevy team, I don't know where I was reading this before, but yeah, I mean, I think he's got a good relationship with Ed Carpenter, but he's pretty much limited to the street and road course only car at this point, unless Ed steps back to just doing Indy, which I don't think will happen, at least this year. I guess he could go to Foyt or Carlin, but I don't know, unless again that's a budget thing. So definitely less. I think, yeah, Matt's pretty spot on with the likelihood of going to Chevy at a very, very low percentage.
One question, and to use Matt's words again, the kumbaya moment that he had with Chevy, though, do you think that could have potentially hurt his relationship with Honda? Not in his personal sponsorship, because we know that's not going anywhere, but for a ride in the future, I guess.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if Honda understands it's just, most likely PR speak, I don't think, I think everybody understands the PR side of things and knows, sometimes these things have to be said to save face. So I don't see it as a big deal.
Yeah, I think it was more political than anything. And I think it was just Hinch covering his bases and trying to say the right things at the time.
So you're saying you didn't believe the kumbaya moment?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to say the right things at the time, given his current circumstances, but I didn't buy it for a second.
Well, I am going to say that I don't really see him ending up in anything full-time next season. Unless he does, for some odd reason, something happens and there's a third car, or, something weird that we are not foreseeing as far as going to another team. I think that the odds are pretty low, unless a Canadian company does come forward and wants to do more sponsorship for him, which could happen, because I know they really love him up there. So it would be a shame to see him not. On that note, do you guys think that IndyCar should do something to kind of ensure that he would have a ride for next year?
Absolutely not. It's not their business to get involved in those kind of affairs. It's not their business to regulate the silly season market. I mean, even I thought what Mark Miles and company did to get Fernando Alonso at the Indy 500 a couple years ago, while it was amazing and everything, to ask Stephen Wilson to hop out of his seat, I think was borderline ridiculous. So for them to get involved in these kind of affairs, I wish they would just stay out of it. So I hope they don't try to intervene and give Hinchcliffe, any sort of aid in finding a ride. I just wish they'd just kind of stay out of it and let the course, do what it may be.
I know we asked a similar question last week, and it was a fan question. I forget what the exact question was, but my answer is the same, that IndyCar and co do not need to find anybody a ride. It is not their job, and they already have enough to worry about. So, no.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of you. Absolutely not. Shouldn't happen for anybody. We know it's happened in the past. And I think it's unfortunate that they step in for people. I think that they should let it play out. I think that obviously, Hinch is very well liked. And I think that will play into his favor. Like I said, maybe a Canadian company is going to come forward with some money. But I don't think that they should be the ones facilitating it. Do you guys think that Sam Schmidt now is having buyer's remorse, that he shouldn't have done this deal because of what happened in the end?
I honestly doubt it. There were kind of rumblings about, maybe them shopping around the 5-car for 2020 all the way back to sometime in July, I think Toronto. And that was, before obviously the McLaren thing was official. It was in the talks, but it wasn't official. So is Sam Schmidt having buyer's remorse because of this? Maybe on a personal level, because Hinch has been a great asset to the team. Yeah, sure, but from an owner's perspective, no. I think something like this could have happened whether McLaren was on board or not, because they were simply kind of exploring their options all the way back in July.
Yeah, I think he's probably. I think it was, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but there's someone who tweeted out, Sam Schmidt's original statement back in the day of basically saying that Hinch was under contract. It wasn't going anywhere. And now that kind of looks pretty foolish at this exact moment. So I think he's probably disappointed with how things have been handled. I don't really know how much of a say he has in the, silly season affairs or whatnot. So I bet he's probably kicking himself a little bit at the moment. I bet he wishes that Hinchcliffe's contract was honored and could have stayed in that seat for one more year. But, when you make that kind of deal, you got to kind of expect these things to happen. So hopefully it's not too big of a surprise for him.
I don't think that he has any kind of remorse for this. And it has nothing to do with them possibly looking at different drivers also. I think, and we'd kind of discussed it before, I think he's ready to start to put racing in the rearview mirror, so to speak. And I think that this is unfortunately just a part of doing that. At some point, he knows things like this are going to happen to his team. People that he liked and appreciated and employed, unfortunately, will not be able to continue their employment there. So I don't think he should have any kind of remorse for it. Then one last question on this Hinch subject, unless something pops into my mind, because I keep having random questions pop into my mind. What do you guys think is going to happen at the aero screen test on November 5th? Because he was supposed to do it. So do you think that Award or Askew is going to do it, or do you think it's still going to be him?
I think Spam would be pretty disappointed if IndyCar mandated like a Oriol Servia type or somebody along those lines was thrown into the seat, because I think obviously the test is for the screen to make sure the screen works, to get more feedback and whatnot, to see if they've made any changes the last couple of weeks. However, we'd be foolish to think that Spam wasn't also using this as an opportunity to give seat time to one of their two new drivers. So I will think at this point in time that they're going to stick with one of the two drivers they just hired. Hopefully, I know they're very young, but hopefully they give good feedback and maybe offer a fresh perspective on things that maybe a younger driver may have over a more veteran driver. But I think we'll see probably Askew in that test.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with Matt just to disagree, but even if I had gone first, I would have said my guess would be Pato because he does have 7 IndyCar races of experience plus the time in May before he wasn't able to qualify for the 500. But just that slight familiarity with the car and a little bit more seat time than Oliver has had may help him get the nod for the test next. I think it's next Tuesday, actually.
Yes.
So just to, I always have to have that mind-boggling what if opinion. So
I'm ready.
Let's just pretend that they're going to still have Hinch do it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like, we haven't got the official announcement yet. So let's just say, because they want IndyCar, this is IndyCar, not Schmidt, Peterson, Arrow, whatever.
Spam.
Whatever they are. This is not what they want. This is what IndyCar wants. And IndyCar wants somebody who has experience because they want to know what the car, like how the car differs from the previous cars. So obviously it's going to be a little more difficult for Pato or Askew to answer that question for them. So I'm just going to say Hinch is going to be in it just to be different from you guys. Mind blown, I know.
Have we ruled out Zach Brown taking part in the test?
No, we have not. That would be...
I think his weight alone would probably disqualify him from fitting in the car.
I don't know. Google it. How much does he weigh?
Is that on Google? Is this what the internet has come to?
Probably. You can find anything online, right?
Oh, gosh. Oh, crap. It's Stump the Host time while Mike's Googling that. All right.
Is this our Stump the Host?
Yeah.
How much does he weigh?
No, it's not. How much does Zach Brown weigh? No, I'm going to put the stump in Stump the Host this week for you guys. Don't worry. All right. We've spent a good, 20 minutes here talking about James Hinchcliffe. So why don't we throw in a James Hinchcliffe related question? So I'm talking 2001 and onwards. That is kind of unofficially when Andretti Autosport was created. Michael Andretti and Kim Green formed a partnership in 2001 to technically form what they called Team Motorola, which eventually turned into Andretti Green Racing, which eventually turned into Andretti Autosport. James Hinchcliffe was one of 4 drivers to race for Andretti Autosport and Newman Haas Racing. Of the other 3, who can you name? One of them should be incredibly obvious.
Yeah, so obvious.
No.
Marco?
But we're warm.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Hunter Ray? Okay, so it's not Rossi. So we nailed 2 of the current drivers. Go ahead, Jess.
Well, they don't have to be current either.
Yeah, he didn't say current.
Yeah, I was just starting with the. I was just starting with the easy
Andretti
ones.
Autosport driver.
There's no chance I can rule out Zach Feach as well.
We know it wasn't Zach Feach. Oh.
Well,
wait, did it have to be Andretti Autosport or could it have been Andretti Green?
Any driver after 2001.
Oh. Okay. Paul Tracy?
No. Because he drove for Team Green in 2002 Indy 500, technically. But think a guy who drove for Newman Haas back in the 90s that was really dominant. That may have also founded the team.
Michael Andretti.
Good job, guys.
I was waiting for him to say Paul Newman or something.
I'm really proud of you guys for getting the guy who founded Andretti Autosport, who also happened to drive for Newman Haas. I think. Okay, so we're gonna definitely need some hints in these other 2.
Yeah.
In 2008, he drove the McDonald's Newman Haas car and also started part-time for Andretti in 2015.
Justin Wilson.
Justin Wilson is correct. Rest in peace. We miss Justin a lot. And then the last one, He's a Japanese driver who started his career at Andretti Green Racing in 2008.
You know that guy.
That guy. The look on Jess's face.
I'm trying to think of Hideki Muto?
Yes, Jess. That's clutch. I like it.
I was like, I couldn't remember if it was that recent or not.
So he's with Andretti Green 08, 09. Didn't really go very well. Went to Newman Haas. Actually made the Fast 9 at the Indianapolis 500 qualifying in 2010. Can you believe that crap? But overall, his season wasn't that great. And then, Justin Wilson was part-time in 2015 there and raced for Newman Haas for one season. And then obviously Michael Andretti was so dominant with Newman Haas for all those years.
Very well done. I'm curious to see how many fans pause after Matt's question and can name those drivers, because that was definitely one of the tougher ones we've had in quite a while.
Got him.
So I will play the intro music here, and we will jump into the next segment.
Okay, so it's been a couple weeks and we are still in our off season. And most of these empty seats are full now. So you guys are race car drivers and you want to prove your worth. You want some team to notice that you are worthy of their open ride for the season. So what racetrack are you going to go to for your test, and why?
Road America. It's obviously an iconic track, but it's got some long straightaways, some tight turns, and with 2/3 of the schedule being road and street courses, I want to show that I'm pretty versatile, and I think that's a great track to show how versatile I could be.
I'm also going to say Road America because while any driver can impress with their technical abilities and racecraft, how many drivers are going to show up and see how many double brat sandwiches and mountains of cheese curds they can down to impress a team owner? I think that's more impressive than, say, showing your technical skills on a racetrack there, host Mike. I mean,
I can't disagree.
I'm going to show team owners how much food I can eat. Isn't that kind of...
Cheese curds are kind of a thing here with us. Yeah, so that's, he does have a good point.
Driver fitness be damned. Who needs it? You got mountains of food and calories, and then I'll be ready to show up at Indianapolis 20 pounds overweight or something. I mean, are you going to disagree with me?
I have no comment.
Well, I'm going to Indy. I'm just, I'm going balls to the wall, guys.
Is it is it the pork tenderloin? Is that what you're going for?
Good Lord, no. But I am going to go. I'm going to go balls to the wall. I'm going to show them what I can do. And I'm going to meet God in turn one. So that's that.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, you've never heard that?
No.
That's like a normal thing for drivers. They say if there's like a slight breeze or anything, they say they meet God in turn one.
My actual answer, by the way, would be Sebring, just because I feel like that track's pretty tough and very technical. But nope, I think I'll stick with my fake answer of trying to impress owners with how much I can eat. Anyways, hey guys, we got non-McLaren and non-Hinchcliffe news to talk about. It's actually something that was sprinkled in right after we recorded last week with one of these subtle announcements is that I could actually have big ramifications on the season coming up here. It has to do with the engineer Michael Cannon, who announced that he was going to be joining Chip Ganassi Racing with Scott Dixon. So that'll be quite the force there. For those who don't know, Michael Cannon was Santino Ferrucci's engineer last year, and obviously that was a very formidable combination that those two had. So real quick, guys, I know this is going to be hard to answer, but do we foresee Scott Dixon actually getting better now that Michael Cannon is joining his crew?
I don't know about better, but any races where Scott Dixon might have struggled, say Iowa this year, or I don't remember where else he struggled off the top of my head, but it's not going to, be a huge difference, but is he now the favorite to win the Indy 500? Most likely.
I'm going to go with no. I think that he's had such a good relationship with his team in the past that, adding one person who, yes, is very talented, don't take that wrong. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference to him and his team.
I think I was reading that Chris Simmons was his engineer who got promoted within Ganassi, and they won 2 their championships together, maybe. So it's not like he wasn't succeeding. However, I think if you look at Michael Cannon's track record, he's done some pretty good work over the years. So I do think we'll see an uptick with Dixon's level. And as Mike mentioned, especially in places like Iowa, and I think the ovals as a whole. On the flip side, do we see any sort of decline in Santino Ferrucci with this announcement?
Not really. I mean, obviously, Michael Cannon, helped Ferrucci learn a lot this year, but I imagine, whoever is, stepping up into Cannon's role is going to be more than capable, either already working for Coyne and under Michael Cannon or coming into it. But, a lot of that skill that Ferrucci showed this year is, determination and some guts. And that is not something an engineer can necessarily, help you with in situations. So I think he'll be fine. I'm not saying he's going to, necessarily be a championship contender next year. But I think he'll keep improving.
Don't really like agreeing with you, but I will this time. I don't think that it's necessarily going to hurt him. We all know that he, in his own words, is kind of crazy on the track. Wasn't it his grandma taught him that, I believe is what he told us.
Correct.
Yeah, his grandma taught him how to be a crazy driver. So I think that's just kind of inherent in him. And then, obviously strategy, it's kind of hard to beat Dale Coyne. So I think he's going to be perfectly okay this season.
I'll say I am a little worried. I think some of his setups, especially in the ovals this year, were very, I don't want to say flawless, but they looked really good at some tracks. So I am a little worried. We might see a little regression this next year out of Ferrucci, but I don't think it's going to be astronomical by any means. At least I hope it isn't. And then one kind of final wrap-up question with this is, obviously Ganassi is part of the big three. Michael Cannon, really experienced engineer who, with Dale Coyne Racing, kind of helped elevate their profile a little bit. So do you guys have any issue with maybe one of the big three teams kind of coming in and scooping up one of the more well-known engineers from one of the smaller teams?
No, I mean, if Ganassi comes at you with a nice paycheck and goes, "Hey, Michael Cannon, would you like to work for us?" He would be out of his mind to turn down that opportunity. Everybody, from an engineering perspective, would love to work for, a team that has a shot at winning the Indy 500. So I have no issue with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the whole thing is about. People move around. They want to put those 500 rings on their finger, championship rings on their finger, whatever. They have a limited career in IndyCar. Normally, not everyone does, but normally they don't, stay there forever. So I absolutely think that they should be able to move around and check out their options, just like, drivers and everything else.
Yeah, great point. Before I let Matt go, or let Matt go next, I did not find Zach Brown's weight, but I did find that his son has a personal chauffeur. I just wanted to throw that useless fact in there before we continue on. So
that's
go ahead,
a Danica fact.
We can start doing Zach Brown facts this year.
God. I believe he raced a season or not even a season, like a start of Indy Lights.
He raced for a few seasons and a few different things. That's where I was looking for his weight at. Didn't find it still.
Why doesn't Racing Reference tell me these things? Yes, I think I'll keep it short and sweet. I think all is fair in love and war. And if Michael Cannon wants to leave for Ganassi, then by all means, go ahead and nobody should stop him. So that's pretty much that. So we'll see if that has any ramifications on next season, which it probably should, but we'll just see if it helps Dixon and hurts Ferrucci or if we're just completely wrong. Actually, they said that it wouldn't hurt Ferrucci, so they're probably going to be right about that. Anyways, we're going to do a quick super duper secret host question, something we started a couple weeks ago. So again, this is something that kind of rotates between us three, and they don't know what question I'm about to ask, and it pertains to some sort of news within the last week or so. And this one actually is coming from today, Tuesday, in regards to a tweet. Sebastian Bourdais was in, we'll say, a fiery spirit today on Twitter. And this was actually in response to Racer Magazine. So several staff, including Marshall Pruitt and Robin Miller, were the ones to break the story about everything we've talked about on this episode in regards to spam and award and Hinch and Askew. And so Bourdais, in response to the article, said, quote, on his Twitter account that he was mostly bothered by the fact that our specialized press cannot respect teams and drivers by waiting for the official announcement. Got to love the modern days, end quote. So I just wanted to get, obviously us three have become more in depth with the media in the last year or so. I just wanted to get your guys' take from, kind of our side here about Bourdais' comments and what you made of what he and Marshall Pruitt dialogued about today on Twitter.
It is our job to do everything we can to find out information ahead of time. I think everyone involved, I haven't met anyone who specifically doesn't follow this, but I think everyone involved tries to get the information as accurate as humanly possible before releasing something. Nobody's releasing anything completely out of left field or anything like that. So I don't really buy into that. I think he should be used to that at this point in his career. I think he's just kind of wanting to jump in and throw out an opinion that I frankly just am not a fan of.
It was first off, it's very interesting following along with that. But yeah, I'm with Jess on this one. It's kind of part of the job now in any sport, whether it be motorsports or any sort of stick and ball sport. That's just, the name of the game. And, there's people who are, better at it, incredible, like everybody at Racer and Motorsport and a couple others out there. And, I don't think they did anything wrong. I know, I think it was Marshall even tweeted, hey, I ran this by Hinch himself and maybe Hinch's personal, management team, I think a couple days ago. So, if he did all that before releasing the story, that just is, extra, he went above and beyond in this case. So I don't see an issue with it. I think it's, listen, it's not going to change.
Nope, it's not going to change. And I totally get where he's coming from. And I get where, people who kind of share that same opinion are coming from. However, it's so hard to keep a lid on news nowadays when it comes out. And I know a couple people within the media center get, agitated when maybe like a small time blogger or something kind of gets an off the record story and decides to publish it anyways. That's where I can definitely see that point of view, but maybe more, Racer Mag and people with well-placed sources like that who go through the necessary hurdles to check with this person and that person and this person to make sure, like, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this. Is that okay? Do you guys have any objections? Do you want to comment? Like those kinds of things. I feel like they covered their bases very well. So I get what Bourdais is trying to say. I just personally don't agree with it. I think it's case by case situation where you kind of have to review everything and, see what the circumstances were. And I think in this situation that I definitely do not have any issues with how Racer Mag or Pruitt, Miller, and the staff, went about publishing this information.
Yeah, very well said. And we will wrap this week's episode up with some pitfalls. Again, sponsored by our buddies at Craft 1861, your all-natural CBD products for health and wellness. Craft1861.com and use promo code PLP40 for a very nice 40% off your order. So with that being said, I will play the intro.
And now it's time for Pit Lane Parlay's Pitfalls of the Week.
So mine is going to be a continuation of last week. NASCAR. So this week, though, it was the big boys. And good God, I don't know. I felt like the entire paddock there was fighting at the end of the race. There were different issues going on, several different issues going on. And after those issues got, we'll call it cooled down. After everything got kind of cooled down and the media got in there to do their post-race interviews, I just had to laugh because it was like a bunch of large children getting interviewed by the media. And we had Kyle Busch, who wouldn't say anything but no the whole time. We had Denny Hamlin, who had this ridiculous look on his face when he was talking about, well, that's just short track racing.
Was that an impression?
Yes.
Definitely cutting that out as a sound.
Yes. So it was just one thing after another. And I can honestly say all of them, all of the post-race interviews that I saw were just watching children throw tiny temper tantrums. And it was kind of funny, honestly.
The only one I saw was Kyle Busch, and it was, frankly, I don't really understand why people like this guy. He's got no personality. But I will not rant, and I will just leave it at that.
He blames that on the media, though, don't you know?
Yeah, you know what?
He's not allowed to say anything or something to that effect.
Yeah, I'm sure Eminem was thrilled with his super personable interview on Sunday. That was all over social media. Well, since we've been talking about McLaren a lot, I will let Matt go next with his pitfall.
All right. Well, mine is actually something that I've definitely thought about over the years, and so it's not something that just happened recently. This is actually with James Hinchcliffe. So in 2012, he drove for Andretti Autosport, and that lasted for 3 years and had quite some good success. I think one of those years he finished top 5 in the championship, I think. And obviously he had a couple wins thrown in there. And after the 2014 season, he decided to make the move to Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, which, he lasted from 2015 to this last season. So what was that, 5 seasons? And I did some more digging today to try to figure out what exactly happened. And so my theory is that United Fiber and Data was kind of a sketchy sponsor on Hinch's car in 2014 and wasn't exactly paying their bills or something to that effect. So I think after that 2014 season, he was kind of caught in limbo and was, caught between a rock and a hard place of, should I have stayed at Andretti Autosport and chance that they just find me a sponsor? I have to go find my own sponsor to stay in that ride for 2015, or should I try going to Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport for 2015 and try to be the team leader at maybe an up and coming team and whatnot? And I really think obviously it's easy to say this now, but I think he picked the wrong choice. I question leaving Andretti Autosport at that time, especially given their success over the last couple of years. And I get that there may have been some sponsorship limbo, but I'm not entirely sure that's the decision I would have made. So I guess, like I said, it's easy to say that now, but looking back on it, I wonder if he's having any regrets about not staying in Andretti Autosport, because obviously they're one of the big 3 teams, and Schmidt-Peterson never quite got there when he was driving for them. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. It's kind of a pitfall out of left field back to his 2014 decision.
pitfall in arrears. I mean, even looking back on it now, you can't really necessarily say, because we don't know exactly what was going on, that he made a poor decision. But I bet that he's questioning his decision tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's, hindsight is 2020, but it's definitely something. Maybe we should do some more digging on that one of these slow off-season weeks and see who we can get on to talk about back then.
Yeah, or just see if anybody had any inside info from back in the day.
Yeah. Very interesting point. I see what you're getting at, and I like it. But on that note, I will bring it full circle here. And speaking of said NASCAR quote unquote fight from this week, which was a little bit more of a fight than the hat tossing of previous fights we've talked about. But I'm not talking about the fight itself. One thing before I get to the kind of actual meat of the pitfall here is I wish the crew guys would just get out of the way and let drivers, whether it be talk to each other or, shove each other a little bit. These crew guys getting in a way make everything 10 times worse. Example would be Joey Logano's tire specialist who horse collar tackled Denny Hamlin to the ground, which looked pretty dangerous in the moment. Could have, injured Hamlin pretty severely there, taken out his knee, what have you. And I'm glad NASCAR actually went ahead and suspended him for, I guess, this weekend's race, wherever the heck it is. I have no idea. But I don't know what really led to the fight. I didn't watch the race this weekend, but, if they want to argue it out after the race, fine. Just, if you're going to get in the middle, if the fight's looking one-sided, okay. But, this, tackling a guy to the ground like that from behind is just totally uncalled for. Just stay out of the way unless absolutely necessary. I don't know if anybody might disagree with me there, but I'll leave it at that.
No, 100% agree. It just looks kind of foolish. It kind of looks like, in the NFL when the quarterback takes a big hit and the offensive linemen step in and try to beat guys up. Like, never quite understood that either, especially in modern day NFL, where the quarterbacks are in a bubble. But yeah, to kind of see that fight, I thought it was a little ridiculous looking on TV.
Yeah, very well said. Jess, anything else?
Not really. Just, right back to it's just feeling like a bunch of children at this point.
It's permanent like pitfall on NASCAR. I kind of like your guys' theme here.
Well, with that being said, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our McLaren episode. I'm sure we'll be talking plenty more about McLaren. We talked about McLaren almost an entire episode and didn't mention Alonso in the context of current day McLaren, which might be a record.
What?
We did mention Danica Patrick once.
Yeah, that's fair. So with that being said, I will let Jess sign us off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.